Welcome back, readers, or welcome new readers to my side of the internet. Today I want to talk about the reading goals I want to have for 2023. We have a new year, we have new reading goals, and we have new reading things to talk about, and yeah. I don't like reading goals. I know I'm pretty maybe a bit different in that, but I don't like feeling forced or pushed into something that I'm not wanting to do. I'm a mood reader and I pick up things depending on what my mood is, and that sometimes do not align with the goals or the things I tell myself that I have to read, which makes me anxious and which leads to stress, and then suddenly I don't enjoy reading anymore. So I don't have that many goals, but when I looked at it, when I wrote them down for my vivid, very up in the cloud goals, I realized that I do have some goals that I still want to do, but I'm not putting any pressure on myself to finish any of these books that I'm going to talk about, and I'm not going to force myself to pick any of these books up if I don't want to, but it's more a guide to myself that this is what I want to strive for. If it doesn't happen during 2023 because maybe I get sick and can't read, or maybe I just do not want to pick any of these books up and I want to read something else, that's fine. That's fine, and that should be fine for anyone. And even if you do have yourself a goal, don't feel pressure into finishing it, because I did that one year when I forced myself to read 400 books in a year. I did that because I wanted to push myself and see how much I could finish and how much I could read in a year. And I could finish 400, and I could probably have finished 500 if I wanted to. But I fucking hated reading that year. Reading was not a pleasure for me. Reading wasn't something I enjoyed that year, and so I won't do that anymore. And this year, last year, 2022, I decided to put a reading goal on 100 books, and I knew I was going to finish that pretty easily, which I did. I finished 180 books, I think. I read longer books last year. I read books like Les Miserables and Count of Monte Cristo, which has above of 1,000 pages on them, and I just enjoyed books. I let myself read for the pleasure of it. In the beginning of that year, I was very stressed, because the year before I finished 400 books, and that meant that I basically read one book every day and finished it every day. And when I didn't finish a book every day 2022, I felt anxious and stressful. But the further into the year I got, the more I realized I didn't have to feel like that, and I didn't have to stress myself, and I didn't have to look at how many pages does this book have. I just picked a book and I enjoyed it, and that made 2022 a really good reading year for me. I really enjoyed 2022, and that's what I'm going to do this year as well. I have made a list of 23 books I really want to read this year, just like I did 22 classic books I want to read in 2022. But if you go back to that video, you will realize that I did not actually read those 22 books. I read a few books on the list, which I'm really proud of, but I did not read 22 at all from that list, which is fine. I don't really feel bad about it. Many of those books that was on that list is on the 23 book list that I'm going to talk to you about today. And that's fine. Sometimes you just don't feel like picking a certain book up, and sometimes you just want to read something else, or sometimes you just want to do something else, and that's okay. When I picked the book for this year that I want to maybe get to and maybe finish this year, I decided to pick books that I have on my physical TBR. So all the books I'm going to name today are actually books that I have in my bookshelf that I do want to read, but I never gotten around to read, because I want to finish my physical TBR a lot more than my digital Goodreads TBR, because I feel like I have so many books on my bookshelf that I have not read, and it feels dumb to buy more books when I haven't finished the books that I already have on my bookshelf. So that's what I'm going to focus on this year. So that's one of my goals, that try to read the books I have on my bookshelves. It doesn't have to be the 23 books I'm going to list in the end of this video, but I really want to finish most of the books I have on my bookshelves, because I bought them for the reason to read them, and I'm the kind of person who doesn't buy myself books I know that I will not enjoy. I only buy books I either know I will love, or I buy books because they are part of a collection that I'm collecting. For example, I'm collecting Barnes & Noble's leather-bound books, so I buy them because I'm collecting those. But that also means I really want to read them because I love classic books and classical literature. So at some point I do want to read them. But I've been collecting and buying more books and not reading them. And I have realized that collecting books and reading books are two different hobbies to have. It really is. But I want for my guests, when they come to my library here, I want them to look at all the books, and for me to have a story for every book and be like, oh yeah, I read that when that, or I read that then. And I want to have a bookshelf that represent me as a reader. For example, like, I don't want to have books in my bookshelves that I'm very meh about, or books that I don't really like that much. I just want to have books that I can say, yes, this is what I like. Everything you see on this shelf, I like. And buying books and not reading the books kind of gives, you don't know if you will like them if you don't read them. Like, you might like the concept of them, but you don't know if you will actually enjoy the books themselves. So I want to get around to it, and I want to read all of them, and then I will just, sort out the books that maybe I didn't enjoy that I thought I was going to enjoy, and I will just give them to a person that will enjoy them more than I did. So that's one of my goals, to just get through all the books I have in my bookshelves that I haven't read yet. Another one is that I realized that one of my favorite genres of all times are horror, and I realized in 2022 I did not read that much horror literature. I feel like I read more classic and I read more contemporary books, which is fine. It's just like was what I was into then. But I feel like I miss reading horror literature a lot. I miss the thrill of it. So I feel like, I want to tell myself to, it's fine to read horror literature. I think I stopped reading because I felt like I needed to do classical literature stuff for for videos, so I read more classics, which is fine because I do love classics as well, but my love for horror literature kinda went into a dark corner and I didn't pick up as much as I wanted to. So I've told myself, because I started, I think it was 2021 or 2020, I told myself that I wanted to reread all of Stephen King's books, and I started rereading them. And for many of you who doesn't know, I love Stephen King and I collect Stephen King's books, so I have a lot of them at home. So one of the things I told myself is to keep rereading Stephen King books. It doesn't really matter which one it is, but I've told myself that I do want to read The Shining at least, and I do want to reread it. And I also think I want to reread like Christine, or maybe Bag of Bones, maybe Rose Madder. We will see what I pick up, because these are Stephen King books, like it's more the classic Stephen King books, and I haven't read them in such a long time. I've read them when I was younger, and when I say younger, I mean like 10 years ago. So I feel like, you know, it's a good treat to reread books that you know that you love. For sure. So those are like the two goals that I have. I would probably put my Goodreads goals on like 100 books like I did 2022, because I know I will come up to 100 books, but so I don't have to feel stressed that, you know, I need to get me a lot of short books so I can finish this goal, you know, because I don't really care about the amount of books that I read anymore. It's more the journey of the reading and, you know, the experience of reading for me now, more than the actual numbers. So I will read more Stephen King, reread the Stephen Kings that I loved, and I will not have any goals, but still read physical books that I have on my bookshelves. Those are like the biggest ones that I have. But I also did a list of 23 books that I really want to have finished in 2023. I'm not going to talk a lot about why I want to have finished them. I will just like tell them to you, and maybe you will get like a whoa, yes, me too kind of feeling, and you want to read the same books as me. The first one I have on my list is Lord of the Rings. I don't think I will read all 3 of them. I have read Lord of the Rings before, but what I remember, I didn't like it. But I think that in the back of my mind, I will enjoy it now, because the reason I didn't like it at the first time was because it was too descriptive. But the thing is, I have evolved as a reader, and I love descriptive books these days. So I think I will love Lord of the Rings now. So I want to give Lord of the Rings another shot. And that's why I have it there. We have Anna Karenina. I'm going to buddy read this with a reading friend of mine, and that's why I have it on a list. And I do want to read more Russian literature, because I have realized that Russian literature and we go hand in hand, and I truly love the way Russian literature is written and described. That's also why I have on number 3 Crime and Punishment. Yes, it's going to be read, I hope. It is on my bookshelf. It's just waiting for me. Number 4, I have the Iliade. Been wanting to read that for ages. Number 5, we have Gothic Tales. I've been really wanting to read that for a long time, but one of my viewers, Skippy, he donated the book to me, so now I definitely need to read it. On number 6, we have King Arthur. I want to read. I have read parts of the King Arthur story, and have read like abrogated versions of the King Arthur, but I haven't read the actual long version of King Arthur. So that's what I really want to read. And the same goes for number 7, which is the Arabian Night. I have read versions of the Arabian Night, and then someone came into the library where I work, and he was like, oh, I want like the second part, and I was like, the second part, you know, and I was confused, you know, and then I realized that the Arabian Night is huge. Like, that work is huge. It has so many parts and so many pages, and I definitely did not read that many pages. So I think I've read like a shortened version of the Arabian Night, or like a child version of the Arabian Night. So I want to read the actual big Arabian Night at some point. At number 8, I have Metamorphoses by Ovidius. I don't really have much to say about that, more than the fact that I want to read it. That's it. On number 9, I have The Last Man by Mary Shelley, the woman who wrote Frankenstein. For you guys who don't know, one of my favorite books of all time is Frankenstein. I didn't know she had written more books, and I feel a big need of reading it right now. So it's on my list. On number 10, I have War and Peace. Same there with the Russian literature. I have heard so many good things about it, and I mean, Tolstoy, come on, need to read it at some point. On number 11, I only have like an author, which is Emilie Zola, which I actually started reading on New Year's Eve. I started reading it. I'm not finished with it yet, but I might, when this video comes out, actually be finished with it. I started reading his The Lady's Paradise. So far I'm not enjoying it, but maybe that will change. I have a few Emilie Zola books in my bookshelves that I got from my grandfather after he's passed away, and I really want to get to them and read them. I'm happy with just one book, and so far I can check that off, considering I'm reading one of them now. On number 12, I want to read some more Bronte books, so I put Jane Eyre on the list, because it was a long time ago since I read Jane Eyre, so I really want to read that. On number 13, I have Alias Grace by Atwood, who wrote The Handmaid's Tale, but I read Alias Grace in high school, I think, and I really loved it, and then I saw the show on it, because they made a TV show on it, and I truly loved how they made it, and I've been wanting to reread Alias Grace ever since, but I never get to it. I think it's because I'm scared that if I read it now, I might not enjoy it as much, because that's like always the fear when you reread books, because maybe you liked it then, but then you evolve into like another kind of reader that maybe are into other things, and maybe that means you don't like the book anymore, and that ruins the experience that you have with the book. But I still want to pick it up. It's on my reading list, so at some point. Then I wanted to read some Dickens, and I decided to do Great Expectations, because I never actually read Great Expectations by Dickens. So I have that on my list. Number 15, we have Moby-dick. I've been wanting to read Moby-dick for a long time as well. I never got to it because I thought it was too thick of a book about a whale that I didn't really care. But I really do care now, I think. I do want to read it. Number 16, we have The Hunchback from Notre-Dame. The only reason I want to read this is because, as many know, I read Les Miserables in 2022, and it was one of my favorite books of 2022. And I love Victor Hugo, how he writes things, and people told me The Hunchback of Notre-Dame is just as good, if not even better. So I'm really, really excited for that. Number 17, I have Uncle Silas. Many know I love Gothic horror and Gothic tales. I heard Uncle Silas is one of the best Gothic tales classics out there, and it's been on my list for many years, so it's going to be read at some point. I don't know when, but some point. 18, I wanted to read some Shakespeare, and I decided to do Othello. I think I've read Othello before, but I am very confused because when I talked to Gina, my other friend, about it, she said we've read like parts of Othello in school, high school, but she didn't think we read the whole thing. I think we did read the whole thing, so I don't know if I read it or not. So yeah, I will read it. Then I wanted to read, and then I realized when I come this far, because now, you know, we're on 19, and I was like, oh no, I only have, almost only have like classics on this list. So I went to my Goodreads and my bookshelves, and I was like, do I have anything more present date that I want to have read? So the rest of the list is more modern books. So at number 19 I have Pachinko, and I think I have read Pachinko, but then when I read about it, I think I only read and seen a lot of reviews on it, so I think I have read it, or maybe I did read it and I forgot about it. I don't know, but it is on my list that I want to have read it, so I will read it. If it turns out I already read it, that's good, and I can just like check it off the list, but I don't think I have. On number 20 I have Glennkill. I don't know much about this because like I had a coworker who loved it, and she was like, you know, you have to read it, it's very fun. It's basically about a sheep who take, you know, solves murder. And I was like, I'm in. But then I never read it. It's been on my list for, I don't know, like 6 years now, so I need to get to it at some point. Number 21, I have The Quiet Zone. I don't know much about this book more than it's a horror related book. And it intrigued me when I saw it and when I read about it, and it's been on my list for very long, ever since it came out, and so please read it, basically. I also have The Secret History. Heard many good things about this, but I never picked it up myself, so I want to read it as well. And then on number 23, this is another book that I've been on my list for so long, and it is Christopher Paolini's To Sleep in the Sea of Stars. I remember when I was in high school and I loved the Aragon series and everything that he wrote. I wrote him a letter and he wrote back to me, actually, and it was a really kind letter, and I really liked it, appreciated it. And then he came up with this is a sci-fi book, and I don't really read sci-fi books. It's outside of my comfort zone, but I've been trying to get more sci-fi into my reading. And I really want to read this, but it scares me, both because of the length of it, but also because it's sci-fi and it's not really what I'm comfortable with. But I've been telling myself that I need to read this just because I loved his Aragon series when I was a teen. So I want to see like how have he evolved as an author throughout the years. So we will see. That's the 23 books that I hope that I can read this year, and we will see how many I manage to read and how many that will be for another year. But comment down below if there's any books on my list that you have read and you really enjoyed, or tell me about your reading goals. Do you have anything in particular that you want to have read or that you want to have done? Or just tell me about the books that you plan to read. Yes. Thank you for listening to my rambling again, and as always, have a nice reading time, and I will see you soon again. Bye.